to scale one. Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna start off with some real basic stuff first, stuff that you probably already know. The dot in the middle is called the center, obviously. And when I draw a line from the center all the way out to the edge, that's called a what?
Radius.
If I draw a line all the way across the circle going through the center, that's called a what?
Diameter.
And how is the diameter related to the radius?
It's double.
So 2r is equal to d. A couple of formulas that you already should know. The circumference, which is the perimeter around the circle. Okay. Which is the perimeter around the circle, is 2 pi times r, or it's pi d. Those are two equations for it. And then the area for a circle is equal to pi r squared. Now we're going to be doing stuff with this in geometry to give definitions to other things. So the first thing that I'm going to go over is, let's think about what happens if I take this circle. Ooh, I missed. Let's try that over again. And I cut it in quarters, so that's 90 degrees. Then I can take a portion of the circle. I'm going to label that point A, and I'll label that point B. And that portion of the circle is called an arc. There are two different kind of measurements that you can do with arcs. One has to do with this angle, and the angle measured from the circle, from the center of the circle, is called the central angle. And obviously that's 90 degrees because it's perpendicular. How many degrees do you have inside of a triangle?
A triangle?
I'm sorry. Ugh, sorry. How many degrees do you have inside of a circle?
360.
360 degrees. So if I really want to figure out what this arc measure would be, the arc measure is the exact same as the amount of degrees between the two radiuses. So, or radii, if we're using math speak. So I can say that the measure of arc B would be 90 degrees. Whenever you see this little m there, they're talking about the amount of degrees of something. If I want to know the actual arc distance, then it's the same symbol without the m. And you find that by figuring out how much of the circumference you actually have. So what you do is you take the fraction of the degrees that represents the arc, which would be 90, and you divide it by the total amount of degrees inside of a circle, which is 360. And then you multiply it by this circumference formula. So you're going to write 2 pi, and then I'll make this radius 4. So it'll be 2 pi times 4. That gives you the actual arc length. So this is arc length. So we reduce the fraction, and that would give you 1/4 there. And then we multiply those together, and that gives you 8 pi. And then you reduce the fraction there. So that's going to be equal to 2 pi. That would be the arc length for B, A, for AB. Another thing in geometry, most of the time you're not going to say that pi is 3.14. You're going to just leave it as pi whenever you're doing math. So you're going to have to reduce fractions in order to find the exact answer. Because when you put 3.14, that's an estimate. Okay. The other thing that you can do is you can do something called sector area. And sector area is the exact same thing, except for instead of using circumference, you're going to use the area formula. So if I wanted to do the sector area for AB, that would be all of this area inside of this slice of pizza. So I'm going to do the degrees that I have that represents the central angle. So that would be 90 over 360. And then I'm going to use this equation for area. So this is pi and then r squared. This is going to reduce, so you get 1/4. And then this thing right here is going to be 16 pi. Then you reduce again, and so you get 4 pi for the sector area. So arc length has to do with circumference, and sector area has to do with the area equation. So let's do a couple of these, and then I'll let you write on the board. You can do the math, and I'll just set up the problem. Find both the measure of the arc, the sector area, and the chord length.
What would that be?
What number goes into both 8 and 36?
4.
4. So just reduce it by 4.
2. 9.
Mm-hmm.
Is that one of them?
Reduce it. Yeah. Which one is it? Which one did you just solve for?
Arc length.
So write the symbol for the arc length that you just found. Right.
Just like that.
Yeah. Okay. What's the measure of chord AB?
How do you do that one again? It's
The little M one. So write the symbol for it. It's that, and then it's AB. So you can hit the back button up there with the, yeah. You got to choose the pencil because you got the eraser.
This is still the 4/3.
Mm-mm. How do you figure out the measure of that chord? It's the same as the central angle. What's the central angle there?
80.
80 degrees. So you write 80 degrees next to that.
Then pi r squared.
Nope, it's just that. It's just that. Those two are always the exact same as one another. Okay, now the sector area is the last thing I'd ask you to do.
That's not with pi r squared.
That's with pi r squared.
It's still the 4/3.
It's still the 4/3. Well, it's still the 2/9. And it's times.
It's 8/1.
So that's 8 pi.
8.
Good. Do you understand the difference between the three of them?
Yes.
Okay. Let me do something else then. All right. So I'm gonna just put another dot on this thing. I'm gonna call that dot C. Whenever you draw an arc on a circle, you have a major arc and a minor arc. So your minor arc is always a measure less than 180 degrees. So your minor arc would be AB. That's the minor one. And that one's equal to 80 degrees. Your major arc will be written with 3 letters. And you write the letters in the order that you come across them in the circle. So if the minor arc is this part, the major arc is the rest of it. So it's the opposite direction. So this direction would be the minor, and that direction would be the major. So I start at A. The next dot that I come to is C, right? And so that would be how you would label the major arc. You notice that these two letters are exactly the same, right? The A and the B are exactly the same. The C tells you the different way that you actually move. And so this would be, what, 260 degrees? Did I do my math right? No.
280.
280. So, do you understand the difference between a major and minor? So I'm going to just pull up some questions here.